A very good morning to you all. I'm Dr. Sapna from the Department of series in order to cope up with the situations which are happening around the COVID things and all. So today we have with us our own alumni, Dr. Gautham Machaiah, who has been a senior journalist with the newspapers such as Times of India, Indian Express, and also with Z. And he's been with the management as well as on the content side. He has been one of our extinguished alumni from the department, and he has also got his PhD from the University of Mysore. So as the department thought that will be a very good engagement to be kept for the students so that they can get abreast with all the activities which is happening in the outer world. And as you all know that COVID has thrown away the whole world to a standstill. There are a lot of changes which has happened, and it is very necessary for us to get adopt to these changes and take up many more challenges. And as you all know that the information is being bombarded from all different channels of the media. People are very much confused to see what kind of information has to be taken, what kind of authentic information has to be checked in. So it is the high time that media also take up the responsibility, because people tend to believe in whatever the media gives out. So as journalism students or as journalism fraternity, it becomes very important for us to know from the professionals who have been there in the industry, who have been going along with the industries, to see how things can be changed and how we need to cope up with the coming up of the journalism profession or maybe in the media in the coming days. So on our request, Dr. Gautham Machaiah was kind enough to be here with us and to share his experiences also on the thoughts. So the topic what he has chosen for today's session is social responsibility in reporting COVID-19 by the media. So we have fraternity, the department faculties, the chairperson, the senior professors, the students, the research scholars, and even my invitees are also here are there here with us to be a part of this particular thing. To Gautham Machaiah. Before we start, there's some small instructions to the participants. Keep all your audio mute, okay, so that even let the videos be on. And we'll take up the question and answer session at the end of the whole session. And please don't interrupt. Okay, so Gautham, the floor is yours and you can go ahead. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Professor Sapna, for this opportunity. Thank you, members of the faculty of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Mysore University. The topic of discussion today is social responsibility of the media in covering COVID-19. As students of journalism, you will all understand that social responsibility is the cornerstone of the media in reporting any subject. But we have chosen COVID because of the timeliness of the topic. The role of the media is to separate fact from fiction, wheat from chaff, and present the truth before its readers, viewers, or audience. But has the media been responsible in covering the COVID pandemic? Has it separated fact from fiction, or is it peddling fiction as fact? While a section of the media has been responsible in its coverage, regional media, a section of the regional media has been highly irresponsible. They've been indulging in fear psychosis. They've been telling us that all of us or most of us are going to die and that COVID is going to spread like wildfire. Nobody has told you the other side of the story. Nobody has told you the positive is not as dangerous as it is made out to be. Day in and day out, we are bombarded with news which tells us that COVID is going to get us, if not now, tomorrow, which, as you know, has led to an acute shortage of confidence in the minds of the viewers in particular and the general public to a large extent. Now let's confront the situation with numbers. There's going to be a bit of number crunching in the session, but don't worry, I'm not going to bombard you with too many numbers. If you look at the statistics, so far, India has recorded a little over 1 lakh cases. The cumulative number of cases is a little over 1 lakh. In Karnataka, we have around 1,600 cases. Now compare this with the population of India. What's the population of India? 130 crore. What's the population of Karnataka? 6.3 crore. Out of 130 crore, how many have been infected with this virus? Just about 1 lakh. In Karnataka, out of 6.3 crore, how many have been infected? Just about 1,600 and odd. This doesn't even constitute 1% of the population. Forget 1%. It is not even 0.1% of the population. To be precise, it is 0.008 of the population. That is how small a number that has been infected by COVID. Now let's compare the position of India. COVID is going to get you, that the situation in India could get worse by the day. But what exactly is the situation? How do we compare with other countries in the world, or rather the top COVID countries in the world? Let's take the cases per lakh people. You know, because some countries are big, some countries are small. You can't compare country to country. In the US, per every lakh of population, the number of people who are affected is 496. Sorry, in Spain. 496 in Spain. In the US, it is 452. Can you guess the number in India? 8 people per lakh of population. Let me repeat it. In Spain, 496 people per lakh of population. In the US, 452. And India, it's only 8. I was talking to my mother a few days ago, and she was telling me, people are going to die like flies. I asked her, where the hell did you get this information? She said, I saw it on TV. People are going to die like flies. Hundreds and thousands of people are going to die on the streets. That's what these channels were telling us. Now let's look at the figures again. I told you earlier that about a lakh of people have been infected. Out of these 1 lakh, out of this 1 lakh, 45,000 people have already recovered. COVID is a killer disease. You will die. You're not going to recover. That's what they tell us. But 45,000 people have recovered, they're cured, and they are discharged. Is now as high as 40%, which means 40% of the people who are infected are getting cured. As we speak now, out of the total 1 lakh people who are infected, only about 60,000 odd are admitted in hospitals and are undergoing treatment. In Karnataka, out of the total cases of about 1,600, 570 have already been discharged. So where is the killer? Why is the media not telling me the story? 570 have been discharged, which means the recovery rate in Karnataka is as high as 50%. Now, why talk about India and Karnataka? Look at your own Mysore. What has been the recovery rate? There were 90 people admitted in the hospital. All 90 have been cured and discharged. Not even a single death. Of course, now there are 1 or 2 new imported cases. That's a different thing. Now you look at the fatality rate in India. Again, I go back to people are going to die like flies. Thousands are going to die. Lakhs are going to die. You perhaps would have seen commentaries, you would have seen comments on how by mid-April, 1 lakh people will die. By mid-May, 1 lakh people will die. Mid-April has come. Mid-May have not died. But they instilled that fear in us. Now, what is the fatality rate in India? Today, we have recorded about 3,500 deaths, and the fatality rate is just 3%. And in Karnataka, only about 41, 42 deaths have of the journalists in TV studios. For a population of 130 crore, there are only 3,500 deaths. For a population of 6.3 crore in Karnataka, the deaths are in the range of 40. Now let's look at the mortality rate per lakh population. How many people are dying per 1 lakh population across the world? In Spain, it is 59 people per 1 lakh. In Italy, it's 53. UK, 52. US, 29. In India, it's about 3.3%. Just 3.3%. But this story is not being told. What is being told to you is that thousands are going to die, millions are going to die. Why? Because today we as a society have become very negative. The media has become very negative. The media knows that you will lap up a negative story. Some years ago, there was a train accident on the outskirts of Bangalore. And a photographer came back to the office after covering the accident. So I asked him, what happened? How many were killed? How many injured? He said it was a waste of time going so far. Only one person was killed. So one person killed is not news. 1 lakh people killed is news. If you look at most of the serials, whether it's Hindi or Kannada, you find a lot of negativity in the serials, because what sells today is not positive news, but negative news. Even if you look at the deaths, most of the cases are comorbid deaths. And most of the people who are dying are above 60. Serious ailments like uncontrolled diabetes, extremely high BP. So they would have perhaps even otherwise died with or without COVID. 70% of the deaths in India are comorbid cases. Like I told you, only 3% have been dying out of COVID. On the contrary, the mortality rate of heart diseases is as high as 30%. In India, every year, 1.5 lakh people die in road accidents. That's a bigger story than 3,500 people dying out of COVID. I'm not saying COVID should be brushed away, but we should take our precautions. We should maintain personal hygiene. We should maintain physical distancing. We should follow civic sense, like not spitting on the roads, not littering. These are things that we have to do. What is required is precautions. Again, if you recollect, in the beginning of this crisis, we were told how the hospitals are going to be full, how patients are going to fall out of hospitals, how there's going to be no space for patients in hospitals. But what is the current reality? India has readied 6 lakh beds exclusively for COVID across the country. Now, how many of these beds are occupied? Hardly 65,000 out of 6 lakh beds. The government has readied about 1.5 lakh beds with ICU facilities. Because again, we were told by experts and the media that thousands of people But what is the number of people who are occupying this 1.5 lakh beds with ICU facilities? Take a guess. Just 2.94%. Just 2.94% of the 60,000 odd are in ICU. Only 0.45% of patients have required a ventilator. In Karnataka, as we talk today, there are hardly about 10 people in ICU and hardly about 3 or 4 people who are on ventilators. The media could have told the story in a more positive way. They could have brought the facts before you. Now that you know the numbers, I'm sure your confidence level has gone up. You know corona is serious, but you know it is not a killer disease as the media has made it out to be. Some of the stories in the media have ranged from the bizarre to the absurd. One regional channel carried a story which said Prime Minister Modi is going to drop money from the helicopter. Can you believe this? Is this a story that that channel will carry? Of course, the channel's got a notice from the information department and they've threatened to close down the channel. Several channels carried stories that entire Bangalore will be sealed down, that you will not be able to come out of your houses, that your houses will be locked. And what were the consequences? There was a fear psychosis. People came out of their houses, people started buying, people started hoarding, and the police commissioner had to personally call the channel and tell them, sorry, there is no such plan. Zones. There was another channel which said that the government has estimated that by May there are going to be 1 lakh cases. The basic tenet of journalism is verify, verify, verify. But most of these channels, or at least some of these channels, you know, during lockdown, the manufacturing sector shut down. The only manufacturing unit that was open was the news channels where they were manufacturing news in the studios. Now, there could be a lot of reasons why we were not impacted as badly by COVID. It could be our young population. It could be our high immunity. It could be that a lower strain of COVID hit us. It could be our lifestyle. It could be the steps taken by the government. It could be various other reasons. But what we have been told, what has been hammered over and over again, is that COVID is going to get you. COVID is going to kill you. Now, if you look at another constant complaint was India is not conducting enough number of tests. The results of the test, what is the positivity rate? For every 100 tests that the government is conducting, only 4% is testing positive. In Karnataka, it's even lesser. For every 100 tests, it's only 1% which is testing positive. In the US, it's 13%, and in the UK, it is 12%. But these stories are never being told to us. Some of us who follow the bulletins issued by the government are aware that the situation is not bad as it is made out to be. There could be so many other beautiful stories which are much bigger than COVID itself. One is the migrant crisis. No channel has handled the migrant crisis the way it should have been done. I'd like to single out Barkadat. People may have political differences with her, that's a different thing. But she was perhaps the only journalist in the country who traveled more than 10,000 kilometers, who walked with the migrants, who ate with the migrants, and who showcased the distress that they were going through. Another publication was Indian Express, which beautifully covered farmer distress. Indian Express especially an alumni of our department, Ashwini Shripad. She traveled to the villages. She connected with the farmers, and she connected them with the buyers in the city. There was another channel which carried live to help people in distress. I saw a particular program where a person came on the channel and said he doesn't have the money to pay the rent, and a philanthropist did the needful. Social responsibility. Unfortunately, a large section of the media, especially the regional media, failed in this opportunity, and they acted like vultures to feed on this calamity. One of the reasons for this is, I'm often asked, should a journalist be a student of journalism? Should he have studied journalism? Or is it enough just to have passion? I've always maintained that you do need to study journalism. You do need to have a foundation in journalism. You do need to know the basics of journalism. You should know what are the ethics of journalism, what are the canons of journalism. Today, anybody who walks into a channel can become a journalist or an anchor without the basic knowledge of journalism, which is why these are not even aware that before you publish some news, before you telecast some news, the first thing that you have to do is call the concerned person and verify. Like I said, the mantra of good journalism is verify, verify, verify. Separate the fiction from the facts, and don't peddle fiction as facts. Thank you. I'm now open to questions. Any questions? I lost you, Sapna.
Ma'am, you're on mute, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Gautham, for your sharing of experiences with the print media. I was also with the Z groups on the management side also, and he was also into reporting. So with his experience, he has told you as to how the journalism students are supposed to keep up with the pace, and also to see that how the data is given by the given by the COVID what do you call the government organizations has to be taken up. So you can pose any questions. If any questions are there, you can just ask him directly, or you can even post it on the chat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, sir. I'm Ashika. I'm doing my master's in Mansa Gangotri, journalism. Sir, so my question is that what are we supposed to trust? Because every single news channel that we see is putting so much fake news out there and a lot of unverified news. So whom do we trust with regard to what news we should follow?
That's a very good question, Ashika, and that question doesn't have an answer.
Gautham, you're on mute.
That's a very good question, Ashika. Unfortunately, that doesn't have a straight answer. In fact, after COVID broke out, I've been posting bulletins on a daily basis, or rather twice a day, on the number of people affected, number of deaths. And a lot of people from outside India write to me, and they say, we don't trust any channel or any news media. So they tell me, you please keep posting news on a daily basis, because yours is the only bulletin that we trust. Of course, I only post what the government releases without any comments. But like you rightly said, most of the channels add their own masala. If one person is dead, they say, excusing what happened. But the media said 80% of the cases can be traced back to one source. Some days back, the government also said, 30% of the cases can be traced back to one source. But if you look at the latest figures, after of the 1 lakh odd cases, only about 5,000 cases can be traced back to Tablighi. So this is a phase that we'll have to live through and hope that, at some point of time, there'll be some kind of a cleansing. The problem also is that, though there are enough laws, though there are certain regulations, there is nobody who is belling the cat. The government is silent, and so is the public. In fact, there is one NGO that's come up in Bangalore, which has taken up this cause. They've started issuing show cause notices to channels. They've also been complaining to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. As a result of this, one channel which carried the helicopter story got a notice from the MIB, that's the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting.
Gautham, there is a question. Gautham, there is a question which says, why hasn't any news channel or reporters questioned the shortage of supply of masks and sanitizers all over the state? Why is that? Why isn't that the journalists are picking up this particular shortage issue in their media?
The media has not been picking up any of these development stories. It's not just the shortage of masks, like I said. It is, what about the story of the migrants? How well has the media told the story? Now, this story of shortage of masks does not really sell. Unless, there is a particular case where somebody dies because of shortage of masks. Then they'll say, okay, 10 people dead because of shortage of masks. Now, nobody wants to do anything constructive. Taking huge risks. They've gone to containment zones, they've gone to hospitals, and there was one journalist who contracted this virus. So let us give them a big applause. They have sacrificed their own lives. But when it comes to constructive stories, you're right, they've been found wanting. They could have brought a lot of pressure on the government, saying, no, there's a scarcity of masks. They could have done a lot of investigative stories, which they did not. At least not in Karnataka.
We have one more question which says that how well do police and the doctors treat journalists when they question them? How has been their response? Because you have been a media and you have a lot of media friends. Have they shared any of their experiences where they say how the police, because we know the kind of tensions what this police and the doctors are undergoing. So do they have time and to answer the queries raised by the journalists?
Yes, fortunately, Karnataka, like most of the states, has been extremely transparent when it comes to news regarding COVID. Every day, they release 2 bulletins, and in the evening, they have a live press conference, which is web streamed. So you don't really have to chase the government for information. And the information is so detailed, like if there is a particular patient who is affected, they give you details of how he got affected, from which patient did he get this. Is he a primary contact? Is he a secondary contact? So the detailing is excellent, except that they don't give you minute details like where he stays, his house address, because there are issues of confidentiality. Otherwise, there is absolutely no problem. Government has been more than forthcoming with information. And with police also, now police doesn't have much to do with health, but where law and order is concerned, Commissioner of Police Bhaskar Rao, Twitter, whenever there is fake news coming on TV, they're immediately on Twitter to dispel such fake news. So I think they've been playing a very, very proactive role.
There is one more question.
Both at the political level and the bureaucratic level, Karnataka has been doing a great job.
There is one question from Anto from Kerala, Malayalam University, who says that what is your take and your strategy on reporting practices of revealing COVID patients' privacy in the news stories?
See, there are guidelines issued by the World Health Organization and the state and the central government that the name of the patient should not be revealed. There has been some digression in the case of quarantine patients where the government has revealed their addresses, which some people have taken objection to. But the media has not revealed the name of any patient.
Okay. So we have one more question from Kashish. She says that while our country is suffering from COVID-19, at the same time, it looks like that many of the reporters and journalists are interested in the other countries, specifically with Pakistan. Okay, any channel is having a different news on different countries. So what is it you have to say about it? Don't you
Now,
think there is a diversion?
I would say the diversion is not as much as it should be. Pakistan, we have a fixation towards Pakistan. We would like to bring Pakistan into everything, whether it's COVID, whether it's floods or whatever. So that's a media fixation. But most of the regional media has not told you the international story. Like they have not told you, like I shared some figures with you. If you look at the facts that are revealed by the COVID war room in Karnataka, or even the Ministry of India is progressing, or India, how India compares with other countries. What is the state of the US? How bad the situation is in the US? How bad the situation is in Spain? How many people have been affected in the US, Spain, or in other top 10 COVID countries? And how are we better than them? So these are the stories that the Indian media should tell us. And these are stories that will give us a lot of confidence. That will tell us, see, so many people have died in the US, but why are only so few people dying in India? Why are we not as badly impacted as UK, Spain, or the US? You have some channels like CNN, Al Jazeera giving you those stories, but I've not seen such detailing in Indian channels, and never so in regional channels.
There is one question from Sujit Narayan, who says that how COVID-19 has affected the media industry, especially the print media. As we know that during this COVID, many of the newspapers had stopped their publications for a certain number of time. And even now, even when they restarted their publication, they have gone down with the size of the newspaper. From 16, it has come down to 6 to 8 pages. So what is your take on that, and how drastically it has affected the industry, especially the print media?
Okay, Sujit, let me give you a small background. Let me just tell you about television first. The highest viewership, or the larger chunk of viewership of television is with the entertainment channels. And only about 7% or 8% watches news channels, out of which the viewership of English news channels is only 1%. So what happens? A chunk of the advertisements, a larger chunk of advertisements always go to the entertainment channels. Now, you know how advertisements are booked in advance. In this particular crisis, what happened was, or they had to run old shows, they had to run movies, as a result of which the viewership of entertainment channels came down. The advertisements of entertainment channels came down, and the viewership of news channels saw an increase. But they could not get a consequent increase in advertisements because, like I said, media planning is done well in advance. Now, coming to newspapers, initially there was a fright, there was a fear that corona could spread through newspapers. So newspaper boys did not lift the papers. So circulation fell drastically. And then, since the advertising agencies were closed, nobody advertised in a newspaper. You know, the cost of production of a newspaper is much higher than the face value. Now, if a newspaper costs 5 rupees, the cost of production would cost 10 rupees, 15 rupees, or whatever, depending on the edition. So with every paper that is printed, the publication makes a loss, which is why they had to reduce the number of sheets. And almost all publications, all newspapers went under a loss. Some are not even able to sustain themselves. Some papers have shut down. Some papers with deep pockets have been able to continue. And in most papers, they have sacked people and have cut salaries. So yes, there has been a huge impact on the newspaper industry, and this impact is going to show for the next couple of months. Hopefully in October, which is the festival season, there might be ads and the revenue might improve and things might turnaround.
Okay. Next, we have a question from Siddhar, who is from Alvas, from Moodbidre, who says that there are a lot of what you gave. We spoke about the recovery cases, but the newspaper industry or the television industry says that they are more interested in the positive cases rather than the positive news. What should a journalist do at this kind of a juncture?
Yes, like I said, people like negative news. I gave an example of my photographer. Only one fellow did. So 100 people that makes much more impact. When you say, see, newspaper industry, rather the media industry today thrives on creating a fear psychosis. What creates a fear in your mind? 1 lakh people being impacted or 40% recovery. 1 lakh people impacted, right? So that's what the media wants to tell you. When there's no fear, why will somebody come and watch you? Now I go to the channel day after day to see how many people have died today, how many people are serious, how many people have been impacted. Then if somebody says, you know, nothing's happening in COVID, out of 130 crore people, only 1 lakh impacted. After 130 crore people, 3,500 people have died. Out of the 1 lakh people that is impacted, 40% have already recovered. So where is the news? I'll not be interested. I'll not go to the channel. I'll go to the channel the moment they say, this is a killer. Tomorrow it will come after you. Tomorrow the entire Bangalore will be shut down. Tomorrow 1 lakh people will be impacted. Or rather 1 lakh people will be killed. That's when I'll go to the channel, right?
There is one more question which says, he hasn't given the name, but he says that he seems that the media has been dragging the information. Don't you think there has to be a kind of a restriction from the government or from the authorities to control this kind of a...
Let me qualify by saying, you know, I would not like to generalize, and there are several media houses which have done a fantastic job, many reporters which have done a fantastic job. Of course, you know, there's something called self-regulation. There's news broadcasters regulatory authority. Newspapers are channels supposed to self-regulate themselves, and if they don't, you can complain to NBA, and they can initiate action. You can also complain to the Ministry of Information. But you know, we have this chalta hai attitude. Nobody wants to bell the cat. There should be students, there should be readers, there should be viewers who, you know, today all that you need to do is just go to your computer and lodge a complaint. But nobody's doing it. If nobody is lodging a complaint, who will the government take action against? The Indian laws are very, very strict. They're not lax at all. You saw what happened when session came. How did they cleanse the elections with the same laws? So you don't need any new laws. The laws are stringent enough. You have enough number of laws to bring the media within the ambit of law. But nobody's belling the cat.
As I told you, that there are a lot of journalism students, the budding reporters of the future who are there in the session today. So some of them have asked the same kind of a question. They are concerned about the kind of unethical thing which has been practiced in the media. And how is that as young journalists, they could cope up with it? Because once they get into the industry, things are completely different. You need to speak for your bosses. But where is that ethical thing they can draw a line and report such kind of an issue?
You know, a lot depends on yourself, and it might not be right to blame the bosses. You know, during our time, whenever we got a story, the first thing we do is we run to all our sources, try to verify the story, keep it a secret, and then when they get a story, like I said, I don't want to generalize. What they do is they'll not verify the story. Either they'll carry the story without verification, and there are some journalists who will go to the person concerned and tell him, see, I've got the story against you. You give me a couple of lakhs, and I'll not carry the story. So in the end of the day, you should be true to yourself. The Bible, the Quran, or the Gita for a journalist is the canons of journalism, the ethics of journalism. And this is not rocket science. The basic ethics of journalism is truth. You just have to stand with the truth, verify the information that you get. But today in this rat race for news, the focus is not on truth. The focus is on who said it first, irrespective of whether it is true or false. Which is why I said there's a need for people with a journalistic background, with the background of journalism studies to join the media, because they at least know what ethics of media is, what are the canons of journalism. Today, the ethics of media have been thrown to the wind. So yes, I agree with you. Ethics are extremely important for a journalist.
I have a question from Ashok from Mangalore, who is concerned about the kind of news stories which have been focusing by the local television channels as they have been covering this COVID-19 special stories. Especially, he thinks that it is supporting more of the political parties. So it is like covering the story and it is in favor of the political parties which is in power. So do you think it is right on their part to do so?
Ashok, I'm not very sure what particular story you're referring to. But yes, as far as sensationalism is concerned, the so-called local cable channels are much more sensational than the regional channels. And yes, there have been several complaints that some of these local channels pander to local politicians. And some of these local politicians also have a stake in a few of these cable channels or local channels.
Okay. We have a question from Fatima. She is a student, basically from Sri Lanka. She has gone back to her country now. She says that, do you think during the coverage of the COVID-19, the journalists are asking the right kind of questions so that they can extract the answer? Do you think they are posing right kind of questions?
Yes, some journalists are posing the right kind of questions. Some journalists are not posing any questions. And some journalists are reporting the wrong answers, though they know the right questions. Like I said, the positive side of COVID is largely not being reported by the media. And even if it's reported by the media, it is, buried somewhere deep inside.
Okay, so
but
just
sorry, but to talk of 1 second, Sapna, talk of are they asking the right questions? Sometimes no. There are so many stories revolving around COVID. The media should have roasted the government about the migrant crisis. Like I said, the biggest human movement since partition. Here the media has failed. The media should have condemned the government over the distress of farmers. That they have not done. So yes, the media has failed in effectively reporting the stories around COVID and the positive stories concerning COVID.
There's a question from Rashmi, our student, who says that most of the people are getting used to these e-newspapers and e-magazines due to this COVID lockdown. Do you think people would be getting back to the physical copy of the newspaper once the things get settled down?
Rashmi, will have to wait and watch. Newspaper is habit forming. And yes, over the past few years, what has happened is people who subscribe to 2 or 3 newspapers have started subscribing only to one newspaper. And now during COVID, a lot of people have shifted to the e-mode. And there is quite a possibility that they might not go back to newspapers, but I would not be able to say it with any amount of certainty. There is a possibility. We'll have to wait for about maybe 3 or 4 months to see how this will impact the circulation of newspapers.
Srivalli, again, one of her students, she just wanted to know why television channels or maybe the newspapers are not popularizing the Indian ways of medicine. Like, for example, she's written about ashwagandha kind of a thing, which is not being propagated by the news channels.
Forget news channels. Even the government of India has issued a circular that, you should not propagate medicines which have not been scientifically validated. Now, if it is an old disease, like, say maybe cold or maybe some other issue where the risk factor is less, where this medicine has been time tested, then yes, the government would say, why don't you take this medicine for this particular ailment? But this is a new ailment. We don't know what the cure for this ailment is. So the government, even if it's erring on the side of caution. Nobody wants to take a risk. Maybe 1 year from now, there'll be some testing, there'll be some scientific development, and tomorrow there might be some homeopathic tablet or Ayurvedic tablet, and the government will say, okay, why don't you take this tablet for COVID? But now nobody wants to take the risk.
I have a question from Ankita, who says that, was it a good decision on part of the government to open up the wine shops? And the newspapers and television channels went gaga over the issue where they covered the whole thing, neglecting the migrant issues kind of a thing. So was it good on the part of the media to shift their interest towards other thing which was not at all irrelevant?
What's the questioner's name?
It's Ankita.
Okay.
Ankita.
Okay, Ankita, there are two facets to this story. One is, should we keep the economy locked down forever? That is not the solution. If you keep the economy locked down forever, there will be more people dying of hunger than out of COVID. And if you could stop the spread of any disease by locking those cities, then we would all be immortal. Tomorrow there's a flu, you say, okay, lock down the city, flu will not spread. There's a virus, lock down the city, the virus will not spread. That's not the solution. The solution is to, like I said earlier, is to maintain certain precautions, personal hygiene, civic sense, social distancing. And your very interesting question of whether it was good to open wine stores. Let's not be moralistic. If people want to drink, let them drink as long as they don't harm others. But from the economic point of view, the Karnataka government, now what is the revenue source of the government? After GST, the government has hardly any revenue source. It is excise, stamp duty, that's all. The Karnataka government earns about 20,000 crore rupees as excise duty from sale of liquor. This is only excise revenue, I'm not talking of sales. So the sales would be into 4. So you can imagine the kind of sales that are happening in restaurants, bars, the thousands of people that this industry is supporting. So it is, I would say, a necessary evil.
Okay. So one question is from Vijay Lakshmi. She is asking about the kind of negative news. I think you might have already answered about it, because they give more of a sad news. They give more of a news which is very negative in nature. Maybe because to enhance their TRPs. That is what the television channels are doing, especially when it comes to migrant issues and all.
Yes, Vijay Lakshmi. Now, in the case of migrant issues, I wouldn't say they deliberately reporting negative stories. It is a real story. It is a human tragedy. And if you ask me, the migrant issue required much more publicity. It required much more vigilance, much more aggression on part of the media. It is a real heart-wrenching story. So I think where the migrants are concerned, see, some negative stories are required. You need to make the government aware. But as you rightly said, with regard to COVID per se, with regard to the disease per se, the media has been giving us only negative stories and not the positive side. Like, they do not emphasize on the low fatality rate. They don't emphasize on the high recovery rate. So to that extent, you're right.
That was the last question, Gautam, because we had another 5 to 6 questions, but each and every question was overlapping with one another. So that was the reason why I had to combine the questions and all. And hopefully, I think it sparing your experiences and your data, which I always follow on you on Twitter as well as on Facebook. And we also had friends and journalism fraternity from different parts, from Mangalore, from Kerala, from Tamil Nadu also. And we also have our department chairperson is there, our faculties are there, professors and research scholars. I thank you, Gautham, for being here with us. And I also thank all the students. And just a reminder that tomorrow we'll be having Professor Nandini Lakshmikanta from Manipal University, who will be speaking on health communication and its effectiveness, COVID-19 situation. So hopefully to join you all together tomorrow once again. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gautham. Thank you.
Thank you all students. Thank you.